This is Algebra 1A, Day 22, Lesson 12, Writing Equations, this time given a slope and a point. So your objective is that you can write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form through any given point and a slope. Let's go over your vocabulary. Remember that a slope is the rate of change, which gives the steepness of a line. It's the vertical change over the horizontal change, or rise over run. The y-intercept is a point where the line touches the y-axis. If a line touches the y-axis at y equals b, then the y-intercept is at the point 0b. Slope-intercept form of a line is y equals mx plus b, where m represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. Let's look at some focus questions. This type of question is probably the most frequent type on the ECA. And the first step, or kind of step one and the first part of step two, is that you're simply plugging in your given values, your slope, your x value, and your y value. If they give you a point, they've given you an x value and a y value. You need to plug it into that equation of y equals mx plus b. So you're going to replace the y with the y value given, the m with your slope that's given, and the x with the x that's given. The only variable that you will not have is your b value. So let's plug those into the equation. Yeah, the slope is -4, but it helps to just go ahead and come to this point here, -4. Our x is equal to, make sure you put it in the right spot. X is equal to 0, your y is equal to 4. And now you're ready for step 2, which is simply solving for b. To solve for b, you'll always use two steps. You will always first multiply your m and x value together. So if we multiply that -4 times 0, we get 0. And then the second step is moving that value to the other side of the equation so you can get b all by itself. Now this one's pretty easy because it's 0. If we move 0 over here to 0, the signs don't change with 0, and you're just left with 4. So b is equal to 4. Once you figure out what b is equal to, then you'll go back and plug it back into the original y equals mx plus b equation. This time you're only going to be substituting your m value and your b value so that you can write that equation. So y is equal to -4, that's that given m value, plus b, which is 4. So another way to think of it is y equals -4x plus 4 is what they need. So it's kind of two steps. First step, I'm going to kind of rewrite our steps here. Step 1, I'll plug m x and b into y equals mx plus b. Step 2, solve for b. You remember you have to do those in two steps. Let me change my pen size here a little bit. To solve for b, you have to do two things. First, you have to multiply the m and x together. Then you have to, I'll say move that value to the other side. And then your third step, you have to plug in that b value that you just got and your m value from the beginning of the equation into y equals mx plus b. Please refer back to your solving or writing equations summary sheet for these steps. I think they're a little bit simpler for you. 3 steps, you'll always be doing the same thing over and over again. This is a very common step or steps in the other types of problems that you'll have in the future as well. Okay, so if I replace those 3 steps that they have written down there with step 1, plug in your m, x, and y. Step 2, figure out what b is equal to by multiplying your m and x together, then move that m and x value to the other side of the equation. Finally, step 3, plug in the m and the b value that you just got from the previous step into the equation. So let's try this. So first step, plugging m, x, and y into the equation. I'm going to do that right down here. So this value right here is supposed to be y equals mx plus b. Our y value is the 3. The m value is the negative, is that slope that they give you. And the x value is negative 4. Alright, so we've done that step there. Now we're ready to multiply our m and x together. That's these 2 values here. Oh, we've got a fraction. So do we need to go over how to multiply fractions? Let me find a good spot to do this in. Let me change my pen color so you can see where I'm writing. Let's try blue a little bit. Okay, negative 1/4 times negative 4. I have a fraction times a whole number, so in order to multiply, I need to change that whole number into a fraction by simply putting a 1 under it. You can either cross cancel or just simply multiply across and reduce. So multiply across, multiply across. Negative 1 times negative 4 equals a positive 4 over 4 times 1 is 4. 4 over 4 reduces then to 1. So when I multiply those 2 numbers together, m and x together, I get 1. So I've done that step there. Now I'm ready to move my m and x value. What those 2 multiplied together. That positive 1, when I move it to the other side, I need to write negative 1. Change the sign. The previous example we had 0, and 0 doesn't have a sign to it, so that's why I didn't really change. So when we move it to the other side, you need to combine those together to get your b value. We have a positive 3 and a negative 1, so your answer would be positive 2. That's what our b value is. So we've done that. Now we're ready to plug in our m value and our b value into the equation to finish up our answer. Our m value is the slope, so negative 1/4. Our b value is the 2 that we got in our previous step. So if you want to think of it as that final answer is y is equal to negative 1/4 x plus 2. Okay, last example problem before I let you practice these on your own. Again, I'm going to rewrite these 3 steps. My first step, plug m, x, and y in. My second step would be to find out what b is equal to by multiplying m and x together, and then I need to move my m and x together so that I can get b by itself. And then finally your third step is to plug in the b value that you just got in the previous step and m back into the original equation. Alright, so let's try this. First step, plug in m, x, and y into y equals mx plus b. So we need first our y value, that's the 5. Then your m value, that's the slope of negative 8. And then your x value, which is negative 2. So we've done that step there. Next step is we need to solve for b. In order to solve for b, you always will start off by multiplying your m and x value together. So negative 8 times negative 2 equals negative 16. And then you need to move that value. Move it to the other side as a positive 16. Combine those two terms together to get your b value. They are the same sign, so we have to add this 21. Finally, so we've done those two steps there. Finally, plug in your b value and your m value into the equation. Their m value is negative 8, and your b value is a positive 21. So your final answer is y equals negative 8x plus 21. Alright, it's your turn to practice these. I'm going to do two of it, show you the answers two at a time. So go ahead and push pause, do problems 1 and 2, and then push play to check your work. Okay, question number 1. Usually when I solve these, I know you're looking at this thinking, boy, they didn't give you enough room to work on these. I start off by writing y equals mx plus b once and y equals mx plus b twice to kind of represent those two kind of steps that we have to do. Our first step is we have to figure out what b value is by plugging in our y, m, and x value. So this is our x value, y value, and here's your m value. Change my pen a little thinner here. So our y value is 0, is equal to the m value is 1/4, and your x value is negative 4. I'm going to put it inside parentheses so that you can see I have to multiply that plus b. So in this first stage of the problem, we have to solve what b is equal to. In order to do so, you have to multiply your m and x together. Here we have again that fraction times a whole number, so you have to put it over 1. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. 4 over 4 is 4, which is equal to negative 1. That negative 1 you need to bring to the other side of the equation as a positive 1. Kind of a mess, I know. So therefore, your b is equal to, combine those two terms together, just 1. Now we need to take that b value to the other side as that plus 1. Substitute that b there. The x stays. We bring in the slope, 1/4. Y. Kind of worked it backwards to fit it all on there. And that's what they want. That's your final answer. Alright, question number 2. Again, if they give you the point and the slope, I just write y equals mx plus b once and twice. So my step 1 is I need to plug in my x, y, and m value into the first equation. So y is equal to 1 equals m value is 4/5, x value is 5, plus b. This is a 4/5 times 5. I kind of wrote that 5 a little low. I don't want you to get confused with that. I need to make sure I put it over 1. Multiply my m and x together. 4 times, so multiply across. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5. 20 over 5 reduces to just 4. Then I need to take that 4 and bring it to the other side of the equation with the opposite sign, negative 4. That's to get my b value all by itself. That way all of that cancels out and b is equal to, combine those two together, positive 1 and negative 4 equals negative 3. Once I get my b value, I plug it into the second equation. So I write negative 3 under that positive b there. I'm going to work my way backwards here. X, plugging your m value, 4/5 is equal to y. That's your final answer. Alright, do the next two problems. or push pause, do the next two problems, then push play when you're ready to check. Okay, we're ready for question number 3 and 4. If you were finding yourself really squeezing to find room and can't read what you're writing, you can do these on a separate sheet of paper. Alright, so if they give me a point in the slope, I know I need to use y equals mx plus b 2 times. The first time I need to plug in my x value, my y value, and my slope. Y value is 5, m value is -1, x value is -4, plus b. And so I have to solve for b in that first step. So I multiply m and x together to get a +4. Bring that +4 over to the other side as a -4, so that all that cancels out and I'm just left with b is equal to 5 and -4. When I combine those together, they're opposite signs, so I have to subtract as +1. Now I need to bring that +1 and replace the b value on the other equation. Write down the x, write down my m value is -1 equals y. Kind of works pretty nice to kind of work from the back to write it all out. There's your final answer. Question number 4. So I need y equals mx plus b 1 time and y equals mx plus b 2 times. With the first equation, I am solving for b by plugging in my x value, my y value, and my m value. So plug it in. I should have 2 is equal to -7 times 0 plus b. To get b all by itself, I need to first multiply my m and x together. Anything times 0 is just 0. If you bring that over to the other side, 0 doesn't have a sign, so it's just 0, or it just cancels out. Therefore, b is equal to +2. Plug it into the equation, plus 2x, plugging your -7 for your m value is equal to the y value. There's your final answer. Be very careful that you always include the sign of that b value. Don't just write a 2 underneath b. You need that sign there. Alright, do the last 2 practice problems and then check your work. Problem number 5, I need y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b. Plug in my x, y, and m value. So y is equal to -2, is equal to m is equal to 3, x is equal to 2 plus b. So I plug in those values, then I need to get b all by itself by multiplying m and x together. Get 6, and then moving that value to the other side is a -6. Don't forget to change the sign. By doing that, that all cancels out. So b is equal to -2 and -6 equals -8. Replace that b value with -8 on the second equation. Copy down my x. Bring down my m value, which is the 3 that was given, equals, and then bring down the y. So there's your answer. Oops. Okay, question number 6, and this will be the last practice problem to wrap up this lesson. First step is plugging in your x, y, and m value into the first equation. So y is equal to 0, m is equal to 3/4, x is equal to 4, plus b. Multiply your m and x together. That's a fraction times a whole number, so we need to put a 1 under it. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4. 12 over 4 reduces to 3. Take that 3 and move it to the other side of the equation as a negative 3, so that will all cancel out, and you'll get b is equal to 0 and negative 3 equals negative 3. Now plug that negative 3 into the other equation, so negative 3, bring down your x, plug in the m value, 3/4, bring down the equal sign and bring down the y. And there's your final answer in y equals mx plus b form. Alright, that concludes the lesson, and you can continue on to do your exit ticket and turn that in for a grade, and you have a homework